Namaste. I'm Bhagavati, and this is the Advaita Channel by the Sangha of Being. And today I should be reading from Bankei's The Unborn, The Life and Teachings of Zen Master Bankei, 1622 to 1693. This beautiful book that connects me very closely with Mujiji, who's just behind me and always here in my heart. First, a little music. And Cara playing The Unborn.
You are my absence, and I am your presence, and where these two meet, a vanishing happens, the unborn is revealed. The unborn is revealed. I am your absence, and you are my presence. You are my absence, and I am your presence, and where these two meet, a vanishing happens, the unborn is revealed. The unborn is revealed. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat. I am your absence, and you are my presence. You are my absence, and I am your presence, and where these two meet, a vanishing happens, the unborn is revealed. The unborn is revealed. I am your absence, and you are my presence. You are my absence, and I am your presence, and where these two meet, a vanishing happens, is revealed. The unborn is revealed. The unborn is revealed.
Namaste, Nitya. So lovely to have your presence here. Namaste to all of you who are joining us tonight. Namaste, Namai. Namaste, Sangha of Being. Namaste, Muji Sangha. Namaste, all those who are seeking the light, who are seeking truth, who are seeking to find the unborn. So tonight I continue reading from the Dharma talks of Zen Master Bankei. And we're now on the Ryamonji sermons. Ryamonji was one of the temples at which he founded and then taught at. And these talks, if you remember, if you've joined before, were given very much like Mujiji gives satsang. Very untraditional approach to Zen Buddhist teachings. So much so he was regarded as a heretic in his time. And I'm so eternally grateful for the presence of this being named Bankei Zenji, because I don't know, it's possible without him would I have found my way to Muji's feet? I truly don't know. All I know is that I found him and I beat a path, seeking a teacher of the unborn. I just knew I had to find it. And through that seeking, I came to Muji. So to just reread the last couple of sentences from last week. All things are perfectly well taken care of in the unborn. Anyone who lives his life in the unborn, whoever he may be, will find this to be true. No one who lives in the unborn is concerned with self or other. He's beyond them both. So here he's pointing us constantly, just as Muji does, to the unborn Buddha mind. Our true nature. So now he tells us a little about his life before he discovered his Buddha mind. And I remember being a seeker like this, and I know many people in the Sangha who won't have had such different experiences. I went around the country wasting time and energy on ascetic practices, all because I wanted to discover my Buddha mind. I ended up bringing on serious illness instead. I've been confined to sick beds for long periods. So I've learned all about sickness at first hand. I know this experience all too well. And you know, many years of my life spent in sick beds. Many years. More than 8 years of my life. 2 separate occasions. And the most profound, grace-filled experiences of my life. The greatest discoveries. The greatest discoveries I have made at these times. Because there's nowhere to go but to seek truth within. There's nowhere to go but to look within. There's nothing to discover but the unborn Buddha mind at a time such as that. Nothing. Everyone who was born into this world and receives bodily form is therefore bound to experience illness. But if you've become confirmed in the unborn Buddha mind, you aren't troubled by the suffering that normally accompanies illness. Illness and suffering are differentiated. The illness is illness. The suffering is suffering. Now, the way it works is this. Being originally unborn, the Buddha mind has no concern with either pain or joy. Since being unborn means that it is completely detached from thought, and since it is through the arising of thoughts that you experience both pain and joy, so long as the Buddha mind remains as it is in its original unbornness, unworried by and unattached to the illness, it doesn't experience suffering. But if a thought arises from the ground of the unborn, and you start to worry about your illness, you create suffering for yourself. You change your Buddha mind into suffering. It can't be helped. The sufferings of hell itself are no different. We create our own hells. We create our own hells by buying a thought, believing that we are suffering. And simply sickness is there. That's all. Pain can be there. But do we have to suffer it? Do we have to suffer so badly? I was an expert at this. Suffering, wow. Oh yes. I see that one so clearly now. But this past year, very sick indeed. Some experiences that would have at another time in my life been the most terrifying ever. But because I'd come to this understanding of the unborn, I was able to use these experiences in such a different way. They were fuel for the fire of satsang. They were such grace, such mighty, mighty grace. Some of the most beautiful moments of my life have been this year. Some of the most profound realizations have been this year. So never let anyone tell you that sickness is an obstacle to finding the unborn Buddha mind. the unborn Buddha mind is a way to escape suffering. Now suppose someone is suffering because he worries anxiously about his illness. The illness may at some point begin to improve, yet because he worries over and above the original illness, about the medicine being wrong or about the physician being inept, he changes the Buddha mind into various painful thoughts, until the disease in his mind becomes a more serious affliction than the original illness. While the turmoil of thoughts crowd through his mind as he attempts to escape from his illness, the original illness may gradually improve and he may regain his health. But now he suffers because he's plagued by the troubled thoughts churning in his mind, which have grown and intensified in this course of his illness and recovery. I'm so wholly with Bankei on this one. I guess because what I didn't know when I first discovered Bankei was we so totally share this experience. This is the voice of experience. This is the mistake I made. This is the mistake Bankei made. This isn't an opinion, it's not a teaching, it's not something he studied in a book or been taught by another Zen master, and nor is it for me. It's a simple truth. We have the key to this door to just walk out of suffering. But even though I say this, if someone who is down with an illness or undergoing any other kind of suffering were to say that he didn't suffer, he would have to be called a liar. He's ignorant of the way in which the marvellous wisdom of the Buddha mind works. If he pledged on his honour that he was positively not suffering, it would only mean that his suffering was taking the form of not suffering. So here he's talking about someone who's, I'm okay, I'm not suffering. And this is a repression then. And perhaps that suffering is still there. There is no way such a person could be free from suffering. Since the working of illuminative wisdom is intrinsic to the Buddha mind, by which it knows and perfectly differentiates not only suffering, but all things as well. When the sickness comes, the Buddha mind remains free of any involvement or concern with pain or suffering. But even then, since you will inevitably think about your sickness, it's best at such times to give yourself up to the sickness and to moan when there is pain. Then, all the time, both when you're sick and when you're well, you'll be living in the unborn Buddha mind. No denial, no repression. The truth of if there's pain, there's pain. We can take medicine to make it go away sometimes. But sometimes we just have to live with the pain, or live with the fact that we can't stand up, or we can't do anything but lie down, or we can't speak, or we can't eat, or whatever it is. But you ought to be aware that when thought becomes involved in your suffering, the Buddha mind is changed into the thought of sickness or the thought of suffering, quite apart from the sickness or suffering itself, and you will suffer because of that. I hear Father's voice now. Don't believe your next thought. I hear Mujiji. Don't believe any thought. Don't hold any concept. Don't buy it. What does Father say? Keep your wallet in your pocket. The unborn Buddha mind is originally free from all thought. So long as a person is ignorant of the Buddha mind's unbornness and suffers because he has changed it into thought, no matter how loudly he may deny his suffering, his denial, the notion that I'm not suffering, is only a determination he has created out of thought. He couldn't possibly be detached from suffering. He may think he's not suffering, but inasmuch as he hasn't confirmed himself in the unborn Buddha mind that is detached from both birth and death, that very birth and death is the cause of his suffering. And all that comes in between. Such is life without Buddha mind. Even when we don't see it, we're suffering. The working of your bright, illuminating Buddha mind is as different from an ordinary mirror as a cloud is from mud. Kyoto, Osaka, Edo, Sendai, Nagasaki, or wherever, once you've been and seen a place, even after many years pass, and you're at an entirely different location, if someone else who has been there comes and talks to you about it, your conversation will go along in perfect agreement. Moreover, while a mirror is able only to illuminate and show objects a yard or two away at the most, the working of the Buddha mind's resplendent clarity is such that you can see and recognize a man over a block away. You can see a towering mountain peak 50 leagues in the distance, even behind rows of hills, and your Buddha mind can tell that it's Mount Fuji, or Mount Kongu, or some other mountain. So, while the Buddha mind is often compared to a mirror, how vastly different its brightness really is. Even the sun and the moon light up only the earth and the heavens. The marvellous brightness of the Buddha mind, by means of words, is able to enlighten people and deliver them from their illusions one by one. And when someone hears these words, and understands and affirms them, he will know for himself that the Buddha mind's wonderful brightness surpasses even the brightness of the sun and the moon. What an incalculable treasure your Buddha mind is. Indeed. And so now we come to Bankai's responses to questioners in this particular sermon session. So he begins by giving us a talk. And I say us because I feel when I read these words, these transcripts, I feel like I'm in this Master's presence. I feel like I'm in satsang with him. So today we're sitting in satsang with Sri Bankai. And just as in satsang, the questions come. So here now we have his responses to questioners. A monk said to Bankai, "I was born with a short temper. It's always flaring up. My master has remonstrated with me time and time again, but that hasn't done any good. I know I should do something about it, but as I was born with a bad temper, I'm unable to rid myself of it, no matter how hard I try. Is there anything I can do to correct it? This time, I'm hoping that with your teaching, I'll be able to cure myself. Then, when I go back home, I'll be able to face my master again. And of course, I will benefit by it for the rest of my life. Please tell me what to do." This could have been spoken at a Zima retreat or in a daily satsang with Ananta, on a Sunday satsang. This question, what are we? Almost 400 years on, hasn't changed. The human problem, the trouble with people. Bankai's answer to this poor monk who is suffering his anger so much. This monk who believes he was born with a bad temper, remember? Bankai. That's an interesting inheritance you have. Is your temper here now? Bring it out. I'll cure it for you. The monk. I'm not angry now. My temper comes on unexpectedly, when something provokes me. Bankai. You weren't born with it then. You create it yourself with some pretext or other. When some pretext or other happens to appear. Where would your temper be at such times if you didn't cause it? You work yourself into a temper because of your partiality for yourself, opposing others in order to have your own way. Then you unjustly accuse your parents of having burdened you with a short temper. What an extremely unfilial son you are. Each person receives the Buddha mind from his parents when he is born. His illusion is something he produces all alone, by being partial to himself. It's foolish to think that it's inherent. When you don't produce your temper, where is it? All illusions are the same. As long as you don't produce them, they cease to exist. That's what everyone fails to realize. There they are, creating from their own selfish desires and deluded mental habits something that isn't inherent, but thinking it is. On account of this, they're unable to avoid being deluded in whatever they do. You certainly must cherish your illusions dearly for you to change the Buddha mind into them, just so you can be deluded. If you only knew the great value of the Buddha mind, there's no way you could ever be deluded again, not even if you wanted to be. Fix this clearly in your head. When you are not deluded, you are a Buddha. And that means you are enlightened. There is no way for you to become a Buddha. There is no other way for you to become a Buddha. So draw close and listen carefully, and be sure that you understand what I say. You create your outbursts of temper when the organs of your six senses, vision, hearing, smell, taste, touch, and faculty of mind, are stimulated by some external condition and incite you to oppose other people because you desire to assert your own preciously held idea. When you have no attachment to self, there are no illusions. Have that perfectly clear. So let's just re-emphasize what is said to fix clearly in our heads. When you are not deluded, you are a Buddha. And that means you are enlightened. There is no other way for you to become a Buddha. And when we have no attachment to self, there are no illusions. And where there are no illusions, there are no delusions. All your parents gave you when you were born was a Buddha mind, nothing else. What have you done with it? From the time you were a tiny baby, you have watched and listened to people losing their tempers all around you. You've been schooled in this until you have become habituated to irascibility. So now you indulge in frequent fits of anger. But it's foolish to think that it's inherent. Right now, if you realize you've been mistaken, And don't allow your temper to arise any more. You'll have no temper to worry about. Instead of trying to correct it, don't produce it in the first place. That's the quickest way, don't you agree? Trying to do something about it after it occurs is very troublesome and futile besides. Don't get angry to begin with, then there's no need to cure anything. There's nothing left to cure. Once you've realized this, and you stop creating that temper of yours, you'll find that you won't have any other illusions either, not even if you want to, for you'll be living constantly in the unborn Buddha mind. There is nothing else. Wasn't Ananta telling us only this morning in satsang? This very same thing. There will come a point where even if we try to believe our thoughts, it simply won't be possible. Not even if we want to. There is nothing else but this unborn Buddha mind. Nothing. Only this. Since everything is in perfect harmony if you live and work in the unborn mind of the Buddhas, my school is also known as the Buddha Mind sect. Live in the Buddha mind, and you're a living Buddha from that moment on. This is the priceless thing directly pointed to. I want you to trust completely in what I'm telling you. Do just as I've said. To start with, try to stay in the unborn for 30 days. I think at this point I'd just like to interject that I've heard Mujiji make the same recommendation to someone who came to him at one of the silent retreats. But instead he suggested perhaps just 3 hours, something along these lines. And perhaps it's because our attention is so much more difficult, supposedly, to focus now. And perhaps 400 years ago, and this being a monk, not a layperson, he would be more trained in resting, in zazen, sitting in zazen. And so to take on 30 days, I will remain in the unborn for 30 days. Very beautiful thing to set ourselves. And yet, truly, we're already in the unborn. We just chase these thoughts, and Guruji says, we're like this, swing in, swing out, swing in, swing out, but always watching from the unborn Buddha mind. So stay in the unborn for 30 days. But if anyone listening wants to try this, perhaps try 30 minutes right now, or 3 hours. If you can do that, shoot for 3 days, 30 days, a lifetime. Is there anything else? Is there anything better we can do with our time, with our attention, with our hearts? Nothing. Not for this one. Once you've accustomed yourself to that, then you'll find it's impossible to live apart from the unborn. It will come naturally to you then. And even if you don't want to, even if you grow tired of it, there'll still be no way you can avoid living in the unborn and doing an admirable job of it too. Everything you do will be according to the unborn. You'll be a living Buddha. Living Buddha. We're all living Buddhas. Every one of us. Buddhas who've fallen into this mistaken belief that we're not. That we're people with problems and troubles and worries and memories and histories and futures and so many imaginings. What happens if we cease to believe in these things? What happens if we cease to buy these thoughts? What's left? Only this unborn Buddha mind, this perfect, clear, radiant light of a Buddha mind that can fill a universe that's brighter than the sun, reflects more clearly than a mirror. You'll be a living Buddha. I say you are a living Buddha right now. If you just don't believe your next thought. Thank you, Ananta, for those perfect words. Don't believe your next thought. Don't believe any thought. You should all listen to my words as if you were newly born this very day. If something is on your mind, if you have any preconception, you can't really take in what I say. Just as Wenmuji says, if you're holding a question in your mind, if you come with more than one question, and you ask your first question, but while you're asking your first question, and Wenmuji's answering your first question, in your mind you're already thinking about the second question, formulating it, editing, wondering what the answer will be, and so not present. You can't take it in. But if you listen as if you were a newborn child, it will be like hearing me for the first time. Since there's nothing in your mind, you can take it right in, grasp it even from a single word, and fully realize the Buddha's Dharma. Perfect. The state of a newborn child, this unborn mind that we all arrive here with. We're delivered with an unborn Buddha mind. All we have to do is realize this. So perfect, so clear. And then we hear like we're hearing for the first time. We see like we're seeing for the first time. There's a story, I think it may have been Osho. If we see a bird in the sky, small child looks up, this incredible event, feathers and sinew and claws, wings, the air lifting the bird. This creature is flying across the sky, and we're just, wow, 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 what is this? And someone says, it's a bird. That's a bird. Bird. So next time we see one, it's a bird. Where does all that reverie go? Where does all that truth and directness of seeing and recognition go? It goes nowhere, it's there, but we bury it in concepts. We stick labels over things all day long. We stick labels over things. If we don't attend to maintaining our state as the unborn Buddha mind, if we just leave these thoughts, leave these beliefs. Reminds me of a story I heard from I think perhaps a Buddhist friend. Obviously didn't have the Buddha mind. She was in a hurry to take her child out in the car. A young toddler leaving the house, come on, dragging her by the hand, run, hurry. And the child stops dead outside the house and looks to the ground. Her mother's not even looking, still tugging the hand, going. And the child, little toddler, a leaf, look, a leaf. This child was seeing this leaf so purely and so clearly and so truly, even with the label leaf, even with the label, even with it named. A leaf, wow! This was the experience of the child. The mother, floor full of leaves, seen them all my life. I've got to hurry. She was off. She was thinking about where she was going, where she had to get to. And the child, a leaf. And the mother stopped. And she realised what she was doing. And she turned around. She looked. And she saw this beautiful, beautiful leaf that this tiny child could not miss. Because the tiny child had no plan, had no agenda, it had no forward projection, no thinking where I've got to be next, and then well, if I don't do this in time, then I've got to be there, and then if that goes wrong, and all this nonsense, all this nonsense. And all this nonsense, what does it do for us? It pulls us out. Certainly as a rope would, out of this unborn Buddha mind. But if we just sit with it, we can see the beauty of a bird, its wings and its might and its natural beauty, its unborn beauty, and of a leaf, and even of a road, of anything. You know, I overfilled the car with petrol the other day. Not overfilled, I overfilled more than I intended. I went intending to put 20 euros of petrol in the tank. And I'm at a petrol station, remember now, and I'm filling the tank. And it wasn't that I was absent-minded. It wasn't that I was thinking about where I was going to be. What happened? I stood at the petrol station filling the tank. And just the way the light caught the tarmac and the yellow markings on the forecourt of a petrol station, how closely do we ever look at these things? captured me. It absolutely captured me, and I was gone. I was completely gone. I was, wow, this is so beautiful. So, then it was like, oh, the petrol. My Zen mindfulness teacher would be very disappointed in me for not attending so closely to the petrol. But what it taught me was, apart from the fact it cost me an extra €7 of petrol, if I'd have looked at that tarmac just thinking it was just a stinking petrol-ridden tarmac forecourt, that maybe 1,000 tyres had driven over that day, and a truck, and had spilt diesel on it, and oil, and petrol, and who knows what. Did I perceive it with all that baggage? No, I saw it as it was. I saw it exactly as it was. There was sunlight, there was colour, there was texture, there was just something beautiful in that moment. And I don't care who knows. It must sound ridiculous. It must sound really ridiculous, but I feel it's such an example of, if we can see purely, if we can use our eyes in this way, what's the limit on how we see each other? What's the limit on how we see pure beingness in each other? What difference could this make in the world? The unborn Buddha mind. What a gift to discover this. I'm just reading the comments here. Thank you, Nitya. Adyashanti said it in Falling in Grace, into Grace, about the bird. Thank you. I think Osho also said something similar. It's a perfect example. There are so many when we look around. And yes, I've been very happy to share these stories. And actually, speaking of Adyashanti, well, I was going to play an Adyashanti meditation. I'm not sure if there's someone on the schedule after me or not. Let me take a look. Let's see if there's still time. I'm last. Thursday the 18th of December. I'm last up for the day. So I hope you can still join me in this. I'm going to play a meditation. If you wish to stay with me, then please feel free to stay with me. I believe it's 14 minutes, very quiet, just sitting. And Adyashanti, another teacher who loves to share the unborn teachings and is also very much aware of Bankei's teachings of the unborn. I'm going to certainly sit here and just enjoy this silence. Let's play it. I hope you can stay.
We're going to take the first moment or two of this meditation to simply do nothing. What could it mean to just sit down and do nothing? To not be concerned about how we're sitting, or the state of our mind, or the state of our feelings. To not be concerned with trying to change anything at all. To ask yourself, what is it to just sit down and do nothing? It's not the kind of question that you look for an answer. It's just the kind of question that you pose and then leave it alone. You leave it alone as if you never even asked it. And when you leave everything alone, when you stop trying to tinker with it, when you stop trying to make it any better, you may begin to notice that the only thing that ever thinks that you need to do anything other than leave it alone is your mind. There's nothing in the space in the room. There's nothing in the stars overhead. There's nothing in the trees or the air you breathe. There's nothing in the floor you sit on that says you should be trying to do anything more than just sit down right now. Outside of your mind, everything is content. It's just as it is. It knows no other way to be. Just allowing yourself, your being, to just receive what it feels like to be in a universe that at this moment is not asking anything of you. What's it like to have no demand placed upon you? No alternative motive. No goal being laid out in front of you. Now you may simply find yourself receiving this directionless invitation. You may find that at some moments your mind, the narrative in your mind, will think that you need to do something other than just sit here. That your mind may have its narrative, its waking dream about what it means to sit here, whether you're good at it or not, whether it's going the way you want it to or not, whether it's of any use or not. But essentially, it's all just a waking dream. All the thoughts. And notice how no outside agency is even at all concerned about the thoughts. It's trying to change them or suggest that they be otherwise. The truth of your being, even the universe all around, has no real relationship with the thoughts that arise. Nothing's against them, any more than a bird is bothered by the sky that it flies in. And the same is true of a feeling, emotion. Notice how everything presents itself in a field of stillness. in a field of awareness. That field of stillness and awareness, notice it's not in opposition to anything that arises, whether it be a noise, sound, thought, feeling. At certain moments, you may notice how artful and intelligent the mind is in getting your attention. All thought craves to be believed. And even that is perfectly okay. So by accepting everything, nothing constrains you.
Om Shanti, 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 Om. Let there be peace among all beings. Let there be peace. Let there be peace. Om Shri Satguru Bankei Ji Ki Jai. Om Shri Satguru Mujiji Ki Jai. Om Shri Satguru Anantaji Ki Jai. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing this to lighten the unborn with me. Om Namah Shivaya.